Hello. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We're going to be starting at 4:05 p.m. We're just waiting for the rest of the students to start. Thank you. Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining in. For everybody who has just joined us, my name is Amma. I'm an education work advisor. We are going to start the webinar at 4:05 p.m. We're just waiting for a few more students to join. Thank you. Alright, thank you so much everyone for joining today's webinar. My name is Amma and I'm an education work advisor in the Grassy office. Let's go ahead and get started with today's session. So first of all, I would like to briefly introduce myself and Education USA, who we are in FED, and then we will move on to talking about how to craft an effective statement of work. So like I said, my name is Amma Chandna. I'm an Education USA advisor in the Karachi office. I graduated from the University of Maryland with a Bachelor of Arts degree in economics, and then I completed my MBA from IB Karachi. And in today's session, I'm going to be talking about the different tips and tricks that you can utilize to make sure that you have crafted an effective and distinct statement of purpose for your graduate applications in the United States. Now, before we go ahead and talk about essays, let's quickly talk about Education USA, who we are and what we do. So as you can see on the screen, Education USA Pakistan is a part of the U.S. Department of State Network. We have more than 430 international student advising centers in more than 170 countries all across the world. Education USA provides free advising services to all Pakistani students who are interested in applying for their bachelor's, master's, and PhD in the United States. And as you can see, Education USA is the official source on all US higher education information. So if you have any questions, any queries regarding the US application process, how to get started, please feel free to reach out to us. We have an application. It works like WhatsApp. You can reach out to our advisors Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Using this QR code, you can also scan the QR code and download the application, and we'd be more than happy to assist you with any queries that you have. Now we understand that applying to the United States can seem quite daunting at a glance, which is why Education USA has broken down this entire process into 5 simple steps for you. As you can see on the screen, step 1 is researching your options, step 2 is financing your studies, step 3 is completing your application, step 4 is applying for your student visa, and step 5 is preparing for your departure to the United States. Now, the good news is, regardless of which step you are on in this horizontal trajectory, Education USA advisors are here to assist you with any queries, any questions that you have regarding the process, and from reviewing your statement of purpose to giving you constructive feedback on your college list and helping you finalize and shortlist the best fit programs as per your own specific needs. Education USA advisors are here to help you out, and we are a free resource, so please do reach out to us if you have any questions at all. Our email address is karachi@educationusa.org. Now, before we talk about the statement of purpose itself specifically, let's quickly go over the different types of essays that you might have to write at the graduate level. As you can see on the screen, there's something called a personal statement, then there's the statement of purpose, there's a research proposal, which is usually for PhD students, and then there are scholarship essays, which you might have to write. So let's get started with a brief discussion about the personal statement and what it constitutes. Because when you're writing your graduate application essay, it's extremely important to understand which of these 4 categories you are pertaining to and which essay you are writing to ensure that your content in the essay matches what the university admissions officers are looking for. When it comes to personal statements, these give admissions committees a deeper sense of who you are as a person. That's why they're called personal statements, right? They're more about you as a person. They focus on your personal motivations. Usually they're around 500 to 1,000 words, and they're usually requirements for most graduate schools. But as we will discuss in this presentation, some graduate schools can require an SOP instead of a personal statement. And we'll talk more about that later. When it comes to writing a personal statement, this is standard for all essays that you will write. The first and most important thing that you can do is understanding the prompt, right? Sorry, 1 second. Okay, all right. Let me just switch my audio. Thank you for pointing that out. Please give me 1 second.
Hi, can everybody hear me now? Is this better? Can you please use the Q&A box to confirm whether this is better? Great, perfect. Thank you so much. All right, so let me quickly go ahead and repeat the last part that I just said. There are 4 different kinds of essays that you will have to write at the graduate level. You don't have to write all 4 kinds. It depends on the different programs and the different universities that you're applying to. So specifically, it might vary from program to program. But before we start talking about the specifics of how to write an SOP, which is one of these 4 kinds, it's important to understand what these 4 types are to ensure that you are writing the right response to the right kind of essay prompt. So the first type that we're talking about are personal statements. Like I showed on the previous slide, the personal statement, the word itself gives away the fact that these are more about you as a person. So these are essay responses that will focus on your personal motivations. They will usually be 500 to 1000 words, and these are a requirement for most graduate schools. But some schools will use an SOP instead of a personal statement, right? So, how to write a personal statement? It's pretty straightforward. The first and most important thing that you need to do, and this is standard for all graduate essays, is understanding the prompt, right? Understand what the university is looking for. Then you need to outline your essay and make sure you have a thesis statement, and just make sure it's relevant to whatever program you are applying to, right? So these are four key things to remember when you are thinking about writing a personal statement. Now let's move on to category two, which is research proposals. Research proposals are usually at the PhD level. So some of you might be applying for PhDs, some of you might be applying for masters. If you are applying for a master's, hopefully you wouldn't have to go through this kind of an essay. But if you're going for a PhD, it's a really good idea to pay close attention to the part about research proposals. So this outlines the research that you're going to undertake at the PhD level, and this is a document of 3,000 to 4,000 words. In this document, you are going to propose your own project or research on an existing project or topic or any new topic of your finding. This helps your future supervisors to better understand your line of thinking, experience in doing research, and how you are planning on going about writing your thesis. As you can see on the following slide, this is what the structure of a research proposal looks like. There's a title, there's an overview of the kind of research that you're going for. You will explain your methodology in detail about how you plan on conducting this research, the outcomes and the impact of the research that you're proposing. And finally, you're going to close it off with references. Now let's talk about the third kind of graduate essays, which is scholarship essays. Scholarship essays are required if you're applying for scholarships, pretty self-explanatory. The topic is given by the scholarship committee, and these are around 500 to 800 words. Sorry, one second. Okay, great. As you can see in this following slide, structure of scholarship essay, the first paragraph is going to introduce yourself and state your intentions, including the current place in the program. The middle paragraphs are going to talk more about your educational objectives and career goals, your background of extracurricular activities, any additional community service or volunteer work that you might have done, any projects that you might have undertaken that will make your selection more likely, and it will also talk about your financial need, right? And then you will conclude with the last paragraph talking about the impact of education that you received, highlighting how that has made a big difference in your life, including a thank you note, and just wrapping the entire thing together. So again, these are not required for every program. Scholarship essays are oftentimes only required if you're applying for specific kinds of scholarships at the graduate level, but it's important to know what they're about. And now that we've covered the three different types, let's move on to the fourth and final type, which is today's topic, the statement of purpose. The statement of purpose gives the admissions committee a better sense of your academic and professional desire and achievements. It basically discusses the purpose for applying to graduate school as it relates to your academic and professional goals. The most important component of the graduate admissions can oftentimes be the statement of purpose, because this gives the admission committee insight into who you are as a person, how you are as a candidate, how ready you are for this program, and how much benefit you will derive from pursuing this program at their university or institution. This statement is usually between 800 to 1000 words, as you can see on the screen. Before we talk about how to write the SOP, the first thing that we need to understand, yet again, is the difference between the statement of purpose and the personal statement. As you can see in this infographic on the screen, the statement of purpose is to explain why you wish to study a certain subject, whereas the personal statement was to explain why you're the right candidate for a program. So as you can see already, the statement of purpose is more professional. So remember, purpose, professional, right? It's more profession oriented. It's more future oriented. The second thing is perspective. This is a forward looking approach where you are going to talk about your future career plans and research interests. So what are your short-term goals? What are your long-term goals? And how does this degree factor into those? Versus if you look at the personal statement, that's a more backward looking perspective. That has to do with what you've done in the past or how you arrived at the current field or career that you're in. right? And finally, the third thing about the statement of purpose is the focus. This focuses on credentials, it focuses on qualifications, on your interests. It explains why you are the right candidate for a program of study and why the institution is right for you. So it's basically telling the university why they are a good fit for you, and it's also telling them why you are a good fit for them based on your qualifications and your professional interests, right? As opposed to a personal statement, which is more about how your personal academic experiences have shaped you into a unique, exceptional candidate. So I hope this clears up any confusion that any of you might have had about statement of purpose versus personal statement, and how there are definite nuanced differences between the two different kinds of graduate essays. Now, let's talk a little bit about the statement of purpose and why it's so important. As you can see on the screen, this is the culmination of your resume, your background, your program, your personality, and your purpose. So basically, this statement will tie everything in your application together, and this should be the central closing theme of your entire application. So it's not a replication of your resume. You don't have to just copy paste everything from your CV. That's not how it works. It's basically a little bit of reflection on what you have listed in your resume, and then also building into that, you will further talk about the program that you're interested in, right? You will talk about the purpose. What are you going to do by pursuing this degree or this program? You're going to talk about the background. Why are you a good fit for this program? Why should they not select somebody else? What have you done in the past and in the present that make you a good candidate? And finally, you're going to talk about your personality and what are the key skills that you bring to the table that any other candidate might not possess. So let's talk a little bit about the structure. The first paragraph is going to introduce yourself and develop a connection with the readers, right? So the important thing is to hook the reader's attention and to basically grab onto their attention span within the beginning, right? If you can successfully manage to hook the reader's attention at the start of your essay, then chances are you've got the reader invested for the rest of it as well, and they will read it thoroughly. As opposed to if you have a weak beginning, then oftentimes readers will not pay complete attention and they will not receive your writing the way it should be received to with complete attention and to the best of its abilities, right? The third thing is in the first paragraph, mentioning your long-term goal and how this program will help you achieve it. Remember, this is something that you will have to keep on doing again and again when you're applying for graduate school, which is showing the relevance of the program to your future plans and to your personal and professional goals when it comes to where you see yourself in 5 to 10 years, or what impact in society you wish to create by pursuing this education. Once you've done that in the first paragraph, let's move on to this middle paragraphs. Now, this is not just one middle paragraph, you can have multiple middle paragraphs, but the important thing to remember is these paragraphs will describe your experiences and the learning that has brought you to this stage, right? So, all the different turning points in your career, in your academics, or in your academic journey, professional journey, that made you realize that this degree is the right degree for you, this is a good place to mention that. In addition to that, you also need to tell the readers how your long term goal was formed. Right? So you can get a little technical here and you can mention specific numbers, you can mention specific statistics, whatever field you are interested in. Don't be afraid of getting technical, because at the end of the day, the people who read your essay are seasoned professors. They are experts from their fields and they are going to be able to understand the jargon that you use to explain how you arrived at your long-term goal. Finally, in the last paragraph, you're going to have the conclusion of the essay that refers back to the intro and ties it all together. So the conclusion will reiterate, it will repeat in a way, not in the same words, but it will revisit why you wish to pursue this degree, what your long term goal was, and how it's going to make a profound impact on your future academic and professional journey, and not just your journey, but the end users who you wish to benefit by pursuing the specific degree, right? And what skills you wish to gain. So remember, this is what your statement of purpose looks like. All right, I'm going to pause here and ask you if you have any questions. Please go ahead and type them in the Q&A box. All right, this structure, I have a great question here. Is this structure followed universally, or is this the one suggested just by USCFP? This is the one that is followed universally. And you can go ahead and follow the structure. But again, remember, this is just an overall skeleton. And at the end of the day, what matters is the content that you add by being specific to your journey, right? And to your program. All right. Any other questions before we move on to the next part? Okay, how many experiences to mention? So this is a great question. There's no magic number. I'm not going to say mention three, mention five, mention 10. There's no right number. Just remember when you're writing in the beginning, in the first draft, write as many as you want to write about, whatever's coming to your mind, right? And when you revisit that first draft, then you can go ahead and start thinking, okay, this experience was too, this is not recent enough, or this wasn't profound enough. Maybe there was something even better than that happened. And then you can start sifting them out and shortlisting which experiences to include. You don't want to list too many experiences where you overwhelm the reader with too much information. At the same time, if you are making certain claims about having certain academic skills, or life skills, or skills as a professional, then you should be backing them up with some anecdote or some personal experience to show that you truly do possess that, right? All right, for thesis statements and more details about how to write the thesis statement, we can always have a one-on-one discussion. So once again, at the end of the session, I will once again share our email with you, and you can schedule a one-on-one virtual meeting with me where we can go deep into how your thesis statement should be, because at the end of the day, everybody's thesis statement will be different based on their program, based on their future goals, and based on their background thus far. So I can't give you one general answer. There's no generic answer to that. Thesis statements are very specific to the candidate themselves, which is why I'd be more than happy to have a one-on-one discussion with you after this session. So please email us, and I'll share my Google link, and we can go ahead and schedule something to discuss that further. All right. Now, oftentimes students attend these kinds of webinars, and they take a lot of important information away, but one thing that they're still confused about is how to get started. So let's talk a little bit about how to get started with writing your SOP, right? The first thing to understand is that writing is not done in one go. You will have 4 different phases of writing. The first is the pre-writing phase. This is where you're laying the groundwork for your overall application information, right? So this is where you're going to lay the groundwork for your essay, just bullet points. You can free write, you can write paragraphs. It doesn't have to have structure at this point. It's just about putting all your thoughts down on paper, getting everything in one place, and just, getting your ideas down in written form. Once you're done with that, then you move on to the writing phase. The writing phase is now when you actually go ahead and start writing something that is resembling an final SOP draft, okay? This is where you're going to go ahead and add structure to those earlier thoughts. You're going to refine them. You're going to remove unnecessary information. You're going to remove redundant stories or experiences. You're going to remove anything that is not adding value to your essay. All right. So you're going to go ahead and try to complete your first draft in the writing phase. Once you feel like, okay, I'm done writing my first draft, this is it, this is great, you can then move on to phase 3, which is the revision phase. In phase 3, you're basically refining your story. This is where feedback comes in, and it's really important to go ahead and speak to somebody who's an expert or who has experience having applied to graduate programs. You can speak to an Education US advisor like myself, and we'd be more than happy to review your first draft or second draft and give you feedback on how you can further refine your story, right? So this is where you will revise what you had originally written. And finally, once you're done revising the story, the draft as well, you put the final touches, which is phase 4, where you polish your SOP, right? So you're done with the pre-writing phase, you're done with the writing phase, you're also done with the revision and review phase. And now you are just polishing your SOP by putting any final touches, fixing any grammatical errors, making sure the parallelism and syntax is in order, and just overall making sure that it's a crisp, complete document. All right. If you look at the screen, the first and most important thing that you have to do when you're starting the writing phase or the pre-writing phase is reading the prompt, right? Reading the prompt that the university has provided you with is extremely important because the prompt contains clues on what the university is looking for. What information do they want to see in your essay? And if you want to write something that's relevant and accurate, then you have to make sure you read the prompt, not just once, not just twice, multiple times, as many times as it takes until you feel ready to start writing stuff. After you've done that, you need to now ask yourself questions about yourself. Who am I? Right? What makes me unique? What makes me different from another student who's applying from my university for the same program? What makes me different from other Karachiites who are applying for the same program? Other Pakistanis who are applying for the same program? Other Asians who are applying for the same program? So you have to start thinking of yourself in terms of who am I? What are my unique characteristics? What parts of my experience have stood out? Right? Once you've asked yourself that question as well, you need to think about what's the most interesting thing about you, right? The most impressive. If you were a university admissions officer, what would you want to know? What would make you really stop and think about this candidate as a serious candidate if they were to tell you this one interesting thing about themselves or the most impressive thing that they've ever done, right? Moving on, you can then think about when or how did you just decide that you wanted to study the subject or pursue this career? Many of us don't know from high school that this is the career that we want to do. For example, when I was in high school, I did not know that I wanted to be an advisor, but it makes me extremely happy to be an advisor. But obviously, there were certain parts in my story where I moved towards the education sector, moved towards the advising sector specifically, move towards the US applications. So you have to sit down and think about what were those turning points in your life? When did the trajectory change? And how can you highlight that in your essay? Next, you need to also think about what writers and texts have influenced you the most. Which professors? Also, which speakers? So, in today's day and age, there's a lot that can be gained from TED Talks and other podcasts that you listen to as well. So, if there's a speaker that you have been listening to for years and years, and that's somebody who has left their impact on you, a deep, lasting, profound impact on you, then you can mention them in your essay and you can talk about whatever work they have done or whatever key insights they have shared. And that can be an important part of your overall statement of purpose, right? Next, you need to look at what experiences have fostered or demonstrated your persistence or work ethic. So, grit and perseverance are two very important aspects of a graduate student. When you sign up to do a 2 year, a 1 year, a 2 year, or a 5 year graduate degree, you're basically making an enormous commitment, right? It's a time commitment, it's a financial commitment, it's an energetic commitment, it's a personal commitment that you will start and complete this graduate degree. And this is where you can show that you already have had experiences in your life which have helped shape the grit and the persistence that is required to go the distance and complete this degree with the best possible grades and best possible research experiences. Next, you need to think about what were your key takeaways from your work or research experiences. Fine, you've done a lot of research, you've done a lot of different jobs, that's great. But why does it matter? What's the impact, right? So you have to talk about the learnings. What were the key ideas that they left you with? What were the important, conclusions that you arrived at within those jobs, within those research projects that have helped you shape your own research proposal or your own future goal for yourself as a professional? You also need to then think about obstacles that you might have faced preparing for your grad school or any obstacles that you might have overcome that are relevant to the story that you are telling the reader in the statement of purpose. What do you hope to gain from your graduate education? If you've done the above, then you will automatically include this as well. What makes this particular graduate program a place where you will thrive? So there's so many different graduate programs, right? There's more than 4,000 universities in the United States. So you need to mention in your essay why this particular program or this particular university is the right fit for you, the right academic fit, the right financial fit, and the right research fit. Additionally, you can talk about any professors at this program that have research interests that align with yours to show that you've done your research and you know the professors and the different kinds of projects that they're working on right now. And finally, you need to tell the university What are you bringing to the table? What are you contributing to this program, to this school? Why should they choose you versus any other child who's applying from Southeast Asia? Right? So keep all of these questions in mind. And when you start answering these questions, you will see that a lot of the things that you want to write about in your statement of purpose are automatically coming down on paper. And that's a great place to get started. Once you've written down the answers, look at the answers that you wrote down and think about which ones are the strongest, most compelling reasons for pursuing your graduate education, and which ones deserve a place within your SOP. Which ones lend themselves to the best to the narrative? Which ones are key to your overall story, the overall theme that you want in your application? And are there any ideas or any instances that repeat more than once? These ideas may become the backbone for your statement of purpose. Okay, so please remember this when you're writing, that answering questions like these, and this is just a few questions, there can be so many more. Think about the different questions that you want to ask yourself before you even start the writing process. And believe me, when you start writing, you would have already done half the work, because the hardest part, which is introspecting and thinking about the why behind everything and the how behind everything, would have been done for you. All right, now let's talk about a checklist for a statement of purpose. One thing that a statement of purpose should do is it should explain why you want to pursue a graduate degree. Next, you should outline your interest in the given subject of expertise. It should highlight your strengths and suitability for the program. Already told you about this. It should discuss your short term and long term goals. Already talked about this. Also, your medium term goals, because short term might not apply for the PhD candidates because the degree itself is 5 years. So in your case, it would be medium and long-term goals. It should also define your research interests if needed. It should emphasize why you're a good fit for the school and why the school is a good fit for you. If you want to take a screenshot of this, you can go ahead and take a screenshot. It's a great checklist to use when you're writing your SOP as you move through the document itself. Now that we've talked about the checklist, let's talk a little bit about tips. How to write the statement of purpose. The first most important advice that I can give you is start early, right? There's no such thing as starting too soon. The sooner you start, the more relieved you will be when the deadlines are right around the corner, because by then you would have already reached on the fourth or fifth draft of your SOP if needed, as opposed to scrambling 2 days before the deadline to write something that might not be your best work. So the sooner you start writing your SOP, the pre-writing phase, the writing phase, the refining phase, the easier it is for you to submit on time and submit a high quality document. The second thing is, of course, focusing on something that makes you unique, right? Everybody will have different qualities and different experiences that have helped shape their journey. But something that nobody else has is your unique characteristics, your unique academic journey, your unique professional choices, the way your career has taken shape. So please remember, this is a very important part of your application, focusing on all the things that make you different from the other candidates, something that makes you unique, something that makes you stand out, something that only you have that nobody else will have, right? And this is where you need to also think long and hard about what it is that is your defining, most unique, most impressive characteristic. Now let's talk about the third thing, which is emphasizing everything from a positive perspective, right? Oftentimes we talk about challenges, and even when you're talking about challenges, even when you're talking about setbacks, you have to remember that you're talking about it positively, not negatively, and that you're writing in an active, not passive voice, right? When you're talking about different things in your statement of purpose, please make sure that the words that you're using are active verbs, right? They're strong adjectives, because these things make a lot of difference in how the overall feel of the essay is and how the reader perceives your story. If you're talking about your own story and writing in a passive voice, that happened to me versus I did this, then that is going to leave not a very positive impression on the reader's mind. Next, consider your audience. Like I said, the people who read this essay, the statement of purpose, are expert readers. They're professors who are seasoned in their fields. They know what they're reading about, they know what you're talking about. So you can get technical, you can mention specific numbers, you can mention statistics, you can mention different references, and they will be able to understand. Now, this is not the place to just mention as many different academic journals and articles that you have read. That's not the point here. But if you want to get specific and refer to any one or two chosen select publications that have played a key role in your career or in your academic pursuits, then please go ahead, not a problem. Next, you also need to understand the university's institutional qualities, right? Like I said, there's more than 4,000 universities, and all of them have a different vision and a different mission. So it's very important that once you've shortlisted your universities, you know what those universities' specific goals are with regards to their graduate programs, what they want to see in a student, what their vision and mission is as an institution in the United States, and what kind of change are they trying to create in society? What kind of positive contributions do they want their graduate students to make after graduation? Okay, so very important to study the institution very closely, visit their official website. You can do research using different portals. You can just do a Google search and look at the student reviews, and you will get a good idea of what the university is all about. Next, peel back the layers. What does this mean? What this means is basically that at a glance, a university can have some specific basic 2 to 3 characteristics. And you can say, for example, if you're talking about my university, University of Maryland, right? They're known for research. They're a big public institution that's known for conducting cutting edge research. And there's 27,000 plus students on campus. So it's a really large campus, 1,000 acres. And they're all about academic integrity and, cutting edge research and technology. So you should know what your university specific goals are when it comes to their programs, right? And the more research you do, the more layers you can peel back about what exactly that institution is all about, what this program is all about, and what you are all about. Second last point on the screen, read other statements. This is a great one because oftentimes people come to us and they ask, how do you become a better writer? And the answer is by becoming a better reader, right? This doesn't mean that you need to read 30 plus personal statements or statements of purpose to become an expert. No, please don't do that to yourself. But definitely reading 2 to 3 other well written statements of purpose, good examples of statements of purpose, and figuring out what makes them stand out amidst all the other statements of purpose that students have written across time will help you understand what qualities it is that readers enjoy when they're reading a statement of purpose and how you can incorporate those aspects into your own writing. I'm not talking about plagiarism. Please do not try to copy anybody else's statement of purpose or personal statement because nobody else has your story. So that's counterintuitive, and that's actually doing yourself a disservice if you try to do that. But what you can do is you can study how they've written the statement of purpose. Where did they mention their extracurriculars? How long into the essay did they mention their academic pursuits? What is the way that they're writing? Are they writing in short sentences? Are they using longer sentences? Is there a combination of both? How are they structuring their overall statement to read more smoothly, to read more effortlessly? It should not feel like the reader has to work hard to read your essay, right? And finally, once you've figured out, okay, this is something that I really liked about a specific statement of purpose, and this is why I liked it, this quality I really enjoyed. Maybe they included some anecdote about a professional challenge that they had to overcome, right? But they used humor to do it. Or perhaps they talked about some recent accomplishment of theirs and they tied their background into that accomplishment to show how they are the right candidate. So whatever a characteristic it is that appeals to you, then you can go ahead and proofread your own work and edit it as needed to make sure that it is a better quality statement of purpose than it was before you started reading other good examples of statements of purpose. Now that you've talked about how to structure it and how to write it, the final most important thing for today's session, personalizing your SOP. Oftentimes, graduate students have confessed to us that they have used ChatGPT or AI, artificial intelligence, for writing specific parts of their statement. Once I even had a student tell me that they had ChatGPT write the whole thing. What's the disadvantage to that? The biggest disadvantage to that, apart from being academically dishonest and counting as plagiarism, is that they're they're doing themselves a disservice. If you ask ChatGPT or any other AI to write your essay for you, that essay will not actually be a true reflection of who you are, what your experiences have been like, what your challenges have been like, what your future goals are, how you wish to accomplish them, because a ChatGPT or any AI bot can never understand the difficulties that you had to go through, can never understand the dreams and aspirations that you have, can never understand the academic goals that you have. And it's not possible for you to be able to translate all of that to a chatbot and expect a good outcome, right? So unfortunately, all AI essays do have certain similar features, and university professors know how to track those. So please make sure you are not using any kind of AI, any kind of chat GPT, any kind of DeepSeek, or any other artificial intelligence form to assist you with your writing. Try your best to do your writing all by yourself. If you need advice, you have advising services like Education USA Pakistan or other official advising services that are available online. But don't use any AI bots or any online portals to write for you, because at the end of the day, that's going to get you disqualified from the overall selection process, and it will be a disadvantage to you because your essay will not stand out the way it should, because it wouldn't be as unique and special as it should be if you had written it yourself. All right. So, as you can see on the screen, when it comes to standing out in the crowd of applications to US universities, believe me, there's a lot of essays. Personalizing your SOP for USA can make a big difference. It's about letting your own unique voice and experiences shine through, making the admissions committee sit up and take notice, make yourself stand out. And this is how you can add your personal touch. First, share your story. Think of your SOP as a storybook of your life, focusing on the chapters that have led you to where you are today. What experiences shaped you? What challenges have you overcome? And just generally talking about personal stories, personal anecdotes that any chatbot will not have access to because they're stored in your brain, right? The second thing is connecting the dots. It's one thing to list your achievements and experiences as they are on your resume, but what really brings an SOP to life is showing how they're all connected. And this is what I told you earlier as well, that the SOP is the central focal theme of your overall application, right? How did a particular project ignite your passion for your field? How has your work experience prepared you for the challenges that this degree will offer you in the United States? So, by weaving all of these threads together, you create a narrative that's not just engaging, but also shows how you have naturally evolved into the perfect candidate for this program. Number three, be authentic. One of the biggest mistakes that you can make in your graduate application essays is trying to be somebody that you're not, trying to sound like more as if you're trying to imitate your favorite speaker or your favorite professor or your favorite researcher. But at the end of the day, you need to be your most authentic, most strongest academic self on paper, right? So it's all about being your best self, not somebody else's. So try to make sure whatever you're saying is honest, that your own ambitions and even your own doubts can be highlighted in your writing as long as they are your own. And this authenticity, this vulnerability will make your SOP truly compelling. But remember, at the end of the day, it is a professional writing document. So don't get too personal and don't get too vulnerable when it comes to your writing. Just tastefully done enough so that the readers can understand that you had to go through struggles and challenges to get to where you are today, but they've only made you stronger. Next, show your passion. What drives you? What gets you excited about the field that you want to study? Use this SOP as an opportunity to talk about any turning points, any eureka moments that you might have had in your career, and how they have helped shape your future long-term goals. And finally, when I say future long term goals, you need to reflect on your future and see how this degree, how this university, how this experience of studying in the United States is going to help you shape your future goals when it comes to your professional life, your future goals when it comes to your personal goals, what you want to contribute and give back to society, and just overall help you be a better member of the community that you are a part of and give back to the academic arena the way you have been receiving so far. So that is how you personalize your SOP. And that also brings us to the end of today's presentation. I hope you found this useful. I hope you found at least one or two pieces of information that can help you get started on writing your own statement of purpose. And I hope the difference was clear from today's presentation amongst the four different types of graduate essays and why it's so important to not mix them up and read the prompt several times. If you have any specific questions, like I had a question about from somebody about a thesis statement. So if you have any questions about thesis statements or anything relating to your specific background or your specific application, please go ahead and email us at the email that you can see on the screen. It's karachi@educationusa.org. And one of our advisors, including myself, would be more than happy to meet you and assist you with whatever queries you have. You can now go ahead and type any questions that you might have in the Q&A box, and I will take a few minutes to address those. Thank you. Okay, let's see. Okay, great. Somebody's saying it was really helpful. That's great. Alumni's SOP resource. Okay, so we don't have a resource where we publish statements of purpose for confidentiality purposes to ensure that nobody's information is compromised. But if you do a Google search, you can go ahead and find some really good statements of purpose and personal statement samples on trusted websites. So as long as you're visiting a trusted website, you should be able to find one or two good samples. But again, remember, when you're reviewing the sample, it should not be to mimic the sample. The goal is to study the sample. What has this person done in a stylistic way, not content way, in a stylistic way that you would like to adopt in your own stylistic presentation of your story. All right. Should I have one SOP for all the universities that you apply for? If I have to make changes, which parts will change? All right, this is a great question. So you should have one main SOP that you write for your graduate applications, absolutely. But you can change your SOP from university to university. Like I said, mentioning the specific program, its relevance, and your future goals with regards to that university and the program is very important. So you should not have the same SOP going to different universities, because that means you're talking about one university and just telling other universities you want to go there. So that's counterintuitive. Have one base SOP, the one main SOP, and then you can have different drafts for different universities and tweak them as needed. All right. Okay. Somebody's asking about scoring a position in intermediate board. The thing is, if it's fine if you mention it on your CV, but in an SOP, the more recent and more significant qualifications would be more relevant. So try to focus more on your bachelor's and post-bachelor's and the jobs that you have done. That the more recent your accomplishments are, the more relevant they are. But yes, if you want to squeeze half a sentence about that in there, that should be fine. All right. So one of you was asking about trusted websites for SOP. For that, can you just send us an email and we'd be more than happy to assist you. Some things in our essay which add value, but to the reviewer do not matter much. Okay, this is a good question. So if you are confused about what matters in your SOP or essay to the reviewer that you might think is not important, or what matters to you that the reviewer might not think is important, one of the easiest ways to solve this problem is once you're done writing your first draft and you feel like it's ready for review, have somebody review it. External voices do help. But secondly, read it out loud. One of the best ways to catch errors and find gaps in your own writing is to read what you have written. So just sit in an empty, quiet room and read your SOP out loud and hear what you have written, and that will help you see any any kind of incongruences or any kind of inconsistencies in your writing. And the third thing that you can do is you can pretend that you are an admissions officer and then read your SOP from the perspective of, okay, I work at University of XYZ and I am reviewing this person's SOP. What do I think is going to be my review of it? And then you could write down whatever remarks you have on that piece of paper. And that's also a really good way to assess how you've written it. Okay. Is it recommended to mention any relevant professors in the research that aligns with our own research? All right, yes, absolutely. So if you're looking for, if you're applying to a research-oriented program and you know which professor you wish to work with, then it's a good idea to mention that professor in your essay. But again, you have to do it tastefully. Don't just write, I want to work with XYZ professor at your university. Please don't do that. You have to mention it in a very a tasteful way. So you have to mention, but maybe when you're talking about your long-term goals, you can talk about how you wish to work with this professor, be his TA or his RA, and learn more from him or from his or her research at the graduate level. And that's a great way to weave in that professor's name and the researcher's name. But please don't just outright say, I want to do this, I want to work with him, or I want to be his assistant. All right. So the way you mention also matters. And yes, if you're applying for MBA programs which are non-research oriented, then that's fine. You don't have to mention professors who are teaching in that MBA program. It's perfectly fine if you don't do that. But if you do mention professors for research-based programs, it shows that you have really studied that university, that program, that you've become well acquainted with it, and you know what you are talking about, which is always a good impression to leave on the readers of your essay. All right. Any other questions? Okay, I think I've got all the questions. That's it for today's session. Thank you so much, everyone, for attending, and thank you for your positive feedback. I hope you had a great session, and please stay tuned for more graduate-related webinars that we will be conducting in the future. Please visit our educationusa.pk website and click on upcoming events to see what different sessions we have planned for you in the coming weeks. Thank you so much. Have a great day.